Is that working? Yeah. Right, so now
I'm not on
we'll
any of
go
them, so it goes.
for slideshow from beginning. Record slideshow. Two microphones. Not quite sure whether they need it.
Wow.
Maybe I could do a duet. Islands in the stream. Sorry, it's nearing Christmas. I'm sorry, I'm slightly demon happy. Right, let's go to the the good news about ART was that this is the new module that started running last year, and I have to say that I was delighted that the feedback that we had about it was fantastic. And the reason for that was not because of anything that we've done, although we did design the module to be really flexible and really responsive to what everybody wanted to do, but it was the choices that people made. They really got a vision for what the module is supposed to be about, and they really came up with some imaginative and really useful for them responses to structuring their module. The idea is that it bridges between what will effectively be your last semester of a university course, it's honest folks, and through into after university. So you can take something with you out that you developed at university. And some people who really, as I say, caught that vision came up with some fantastic ideas, and we hadn't even thought through, because when you've done something for the first time, we had a load of ideas about what you could do, but then also people came back to us and said, oh, does that mean I could do a demo CD? And we said, yeah, absolutely. Does that mean I can find an agent for my band and rehearse having meetings, networking, that I'm intending to do down in London when I finish the course and move? That was Jack and Matt Pickersgill, and setting up the TaylorMade. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the different routes that you can have through the module. But people like Lucy Hill springs to mind, who said, well, I want to go to America, I want to have an internship. So she used this module to set up her events management internship that she's currently doing. People use this module to prepare for the London Showcase. Ash Goosey and Faye Etherington used this module to take a piece of dance out to the Ludus Dance platform that they did, and some people went, and I know from this year, did their tech for them, and that went really well. So if you can try and use today as an opportunity of thinking, how does this work for me? So you have to start thinking about your career aspirations. And what we mean by that is not necessarily that you might have a fixed job in mind. You might look at your approaches to professional practice, your understanding of employability, and start thinking about the experience and skills and processes that might get you to where you want to be. So stage one is deciding on the underpinning career perspective that you want to take, which could be as an actor or a singer or a dancer, but equally could be going on to an MA course, in which case you might choose to write an essay, because this is the opportunity that you have to do an extended piece of writing at level 6, if that's something that you know you want to do. You could think about it in terms of we had somebody yesterday that said, I don't really want to do anything to do with performing arts. And if you think right back to Gavin's very, very first speech, which was probably your first thing that you heard in connection with university, we have people who say, I wouldn't have done any other degree, but I'm done now. I don't want to do any more performance. I want to be a police officer or a firefighter, or we had somebody yesterday who said, I'd like to be an accountant. Well, I was immediately able to think how on this module, say you took an essay title or a project report and you looked at commercial theatre, different ways of funding commercial theatre, and you're starting to get into the kind of areas of finance and thinking through how people budget for things, what they spend money on, how they raise the money and how they spend it. So there's possibilities for almost, I'm sure someone will come up with something that we can't think of a way of doing, but the more you can make this real for you, the better. So, as I say, it doesn't have to be an actual job, although it could be. You could link this with some kind of work experience and actually disappear off from Carlisle and do something else. I'm thinking particularly of somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody on Technical Theatre last year chose to go and do lighting for, I think it was the Royal Marines Panto. Is this ringing any bells with anybody? But they were using a professional theatre and they wanted to learn how to use the particular lighting equipment that was in the theatre that they'd never come across before in a piece of professional kit. So they booked themselves onto the manufacturer's training day, which they went on, and that was part of their arts folder, all the kind of certificate to say they had trained on that piece of equipment, and then all the plans and the stuff that they had around the panto for the lighting that they did, which I thought was a really, really useful way of, again, improving your skills and maybe doing some further training. But you could just look upon it in terms of your own personal development. What could I take out there? Do I need to think about improving my skills in workshop leading, or in writing, or in composing songs, or all sorts of things that you could have as a transferable element to your skills portfolio, if you like. That bit on your CV that marks you out as different from everybody else. So I think I might have said to you before in some other context, everybody who's done a performance-based course will have a similar kind of performance CV. We've all done a certain number of shows in training. Some of the directors that we have here, visiting directors, they also work in other places, Mount View and Central and other universities. So quite often that piece, when say an agent is looking at it, will look very similar. Whatever kind of, we like to think that people might have got more in terms of the number of performances, but the level of performances is quite similar. The extra skills, I have written my own original new musical. Not everybody's going to have that on their CV. Might not come to anything, but it's there. Somebody might spot that and go, okay, that says something about that person. So it could be that you're thinking in these terms, rather than in terms of actually, I want to be a teacher, or I want to be a youth worker, or whatever it is. Stage 2 is important, and it's particularly important for BAPA. It's very obvious for joint honours, because you will do the arts module in your 6-week gap in between the final performances, or so I think this year it goes drama, no, music, theatre, dance, drama. Is that right? Yes. I think no, it's not censors, it's
leaning on our
it's just lent on it. So, we will start the arts module at the beginning of each of those 6-week gaps. So there's one in January, one in February, one in April. Okay? And you do it if you're a joint honours wherever the gap is. Similarly, if it's the show you're not working on technically as well, so whichever way round it is. Okay? With BAPA, we give you twice as long because you're doing it alongside a final module. So you still need to start at the same point, so you either need to start in January or February, but if you're starting in January, you don't deliver it until March, and whatever it is, and we'll talk about that later. If you're in that period, and if you look and think, oh, my final's sort of scheduled there, I'm very busy at this time, then starting at the end of February and go through till April, May time. One of those will fit in, and if anybody hits a really, really particular problem, then we are able to look at you on an individual basis, so don't panic. Maybe just, consider your own workload. Now, it is possible to do the arts module with other people, and the classic example last year was Matt and Jack, who did exactly the same thing together, but they did a much bigger project. They did a much bigger project, and they divided it between them. But certain aspects of it they did together. There was a classic meeting that they held, and they said, well, we wouldn't really have this meeting in university. So I said, fine, where would you have it? They said, well, in a hotel bar or something like that. So Mary and I got suited and booted, and they got suited and booted, and we went to the Cumbria Park Hotel, that local legendary glamour location, and they had some drinks laid on for us, and they practiced schmoozing us as if we were from a record label, and they brought their pitch, and they gave us, some handouts about their band and a couple of tracks that we could listen to, and that was one of the outcomes that we agreed for them would be useful for them to practice doing for this module. Is this kind of starting to make sense? Yeah? So, if these are the most important considerations, this is also, if you're going to do it like that, obviously something that you need to think about. In other words, if you want to link it to some kind of experience outside the university, then you need to sort of start thinking about those dates and the availability of that. That might fit in with somebody. For example, I'll give you Lucy from last year. She wanted to have this thing done and dusted and set up so that she could then go, I think she did Camp America again or something like that, and then she went on to this afterwards in America, and she wanted to have it sorted by May at the end of this module. And that involved having a Skype interview. Well, it would have been really, with whoever it was in the States, well, it would have been really a bit ridiculous for her to start writing about this without having had the Skype interview, at which obviously she was successful, so she was delighted about that. So it might be that there's some kind of external date that you need to think about as well. So when you've decided when you want to do it, you might like to start thinking about what kind of pathway, what kind of route you might follow through, to go through the module. We're going to use a Bristol Online survey again, and I'll make that available this week. And it will have on it just these kind of choices, and then the dates. So that I just want you to give me an indication at this point, and you can subsequently change your mind, but at the moment, just so that I get an idea of, at these particular dates, there's likely to be a lot of people who want to be singers and actors and dancers. At this particular point, there's only one person doing choreography. At this point, there's a load of people who want to look at teaching, or whatever it is. Yeah? So if you give me an early indication, then it just helps me to organise the module. But you'll see how that works in a moment. So here are the things that we suggested, and these will be on this survey, so you can click against them. It also has a box saying Other. One of the things that we didn't have on the list last year was a production of the demo CD, and that's what 2 people wrote in their Other section. Can I please do that? One of them is Lucy Walker, who is now Lucy May, and who is appearing at the O2 in the national finals of Open Mic. And we're all really delighted about that and hope she wins. But she had a CD that came out of this module that she then went on to sort of use in various locations, and certainly one of the songs that I heard her sing is one of the tracks that she did on the CD. So I've got that in my office in case she makes it big time, because she only made 3 copies. So is there anybody wants to ask anything about this? What we there's a bit more to explain about the 2 stages that it comes in. Once you've got this heading, we tell you the kind of outcomes that we would like. And it is not so much focused on the end product. You don't have to have, it's not like original performance where it's all on the final performance. I said before that you might want to work with somebody, but equally, this might be your opportunity, folks, to keep flexible and just work on your own, because then you're not dependent on anybody else's availability, particularly if you're a BAPA. That might be very important if you're trying to do rehearsals for different finals or for some of your other modules, to have yet another thing where you're not working on your own, you're working with somebody. I don't know whether it's a step too far in terms of coordinating your life and fitting everything in. So there is obviously the option. And some people, as their rationale for why they chose an essay last year was because it just made my last term easier. If I wrote an essay, I was responsible for it. I just had to read in my spare time, do my research, write, and fit it in between other things, and that just made it simple for me. And I chose a topic on the essay that I was interested in, so the proposal made sense for that person. Yes?
I'm just trying to sort out my head. So, if I was to choose, per se, singing and acting,
Yep.
would I then create like an audition piece?
Yes,
Or,
that's
so
what we do.
would I bring that to you, or would I go out to something and actually...
No, we set up, well, you can eventually do that, but I would suggest you tried it out with us first and
Right,
had the
okay.
feedback. So we were, exactly what you're saying, people in an audition. We brought in a proper pianist, so you didn't have to supply that. So part of the exercise was to be able to deal with the pianist,
Okay.
to explain it to them how you wanted to do the show. And then there was an interview afterwards, and you brought along your headshot
Yeah.
and your CV and your portfolio of work, and we chose out of, I think it was 8 or 10 different things that you'd prepared, we chose the ones that we wanted on the day.
So, out of that module,
Yeah,
we create with you sort of like
a proposal.
Okay, that's basic, that's just
I'm just
it.
going to go on to explain that in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. No, that's fine. You're absolutely on the right thinking. If that's where you're at, that's the next slide.
Alright, okay.
Okay?
Obviously I'm aware of the degree I'm doing,
Yep.
but for the arts, say I want to do teaching, does it have to be something to do with musical theatre and checking that, or can I just be like core subject?
No, you can do the skills of teaching because there's so many transferable skills. I mean, if you wanted to say do primary school teaching, some people like primary school teachers who've got an arts background, to be able to contribute that to the school. And I think the skills of teaching in terms of standing up and presenting and learning your lines, and effectively the kids are your audience, aren't they? So it doesn't have to be I'm going to teach drama or whatever. Yeah? Yeah.
I know this is probably nothing to do with anyone doing it, but you know, if you want to do something completely different in your life, like you
Yeah.
decided that you're not 100% sure you want to go into performing arts,
Yeah.
can you tailor this to be able to do what...
I can try,
Right.
is what I'll say.
Yeah, I'll come and talk to you.
Okay. We've managed it so far.
Because I'm
But
just
it's only
thinking,
run 1 year, so inevitably somebody's going. It is a performing arts degree, so we cannot have you submitting essays about, land irrigation of land and crop rotation or something like that. Yes, Siobhan. Sinead, come on. Sinead, sorry.
Just from looking at the choice of shows, what could you do to musical? How would you get?
Well, actually, somebody linked in with a final last year. The person who wanted to, there was only one person who got marks on musical direction, and they linked in with a back final. Is it Ordinary Days, if anybody saw it? Yes?
It's probably going to sound really stupid, right? But people's been telling me different things. You know, if you do arts instead of doing a dissertation, do you finish with the same thing? Do you finish with a BA honours, or do you finish with something that's not quite the full thing? Because someone told me if you do arts, then it's not.
You have to do arts. You can choose to do the essay. And we have, with our external examiner, we have a very big argument well, not argument, but we had to convince her that the strands that you work, you wait till you see it, the strands where you're doing the practical outcomes rather than a written outcome were equally as academic as they're just different in terms of the way in which you present it. And you'll see that when you see what the learning outcomes are, because it's not so much about, it's about the processes and the research and the thinking and the strategies and all of that side of it. Only 25% is on the final kind of creative thing. Yeah?
Could you do your final?
Mhm.
If you were writing a final and directing a final, could you link that with arts? Could you literally go, this is my arts for, I don't know, directing, blah, blah, blah?
Well, one of the things that it would have to be very, very distinct.
Right.
Yeah? So if somebody were like to do a study of arts around the whole thing of taking it outside, workshopping it, writing a marketing pack to do with selling it to schools or doing a load of research into companies that were similar to what you want to set up, then there's no reason why the product, if you like, couldn't be your final.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in terms of I want to do my arts directing my final, no,
Okay.
can't do that. But you could put something alongside that has a clear link.
I was just, can I just expand on Pete's point? I heard that, yeah, rumours. I heard that if you do an extended essay, that counts further as a dissertation so that you can do teaching. But if you do arts, then you can't do teaching unless you do a teaching degree after. Because you need the dissertation.
Never heard that.
Yeah, I'll choose that.
Yeah.
By whom?
Just because you haven't done a
just
dissertation.
Yeah.
I think now that, well, I think there are very good reasons for choosing to do a dissertation, and becoming a teacher and going on to a PGC may well be one of them. If that's something that you need to do, I strongly recommend that you do the dissertation. If you discover through your research that that is not required and you don't want to, I don't see that any, sometimes I've seen them, because I do references for people teaching, they do want you to spell out what all the modules were on your degree, do they not?
Yeah,
They are
they-
wanting, therefore, to see the words, but the module will not be called that. The module will be called Applied Research and Professional Skills. So you would have to explain that your thing on that was an academic dissertation. We wanted to leave that in so that anybody doing this course that wanted to progress onto an MA had the option of writing extensively at level 6. That's why we left it in, yeah, because some people will want to. Equally, we wanted to allow people who writing is not their major thing and they want to go on and be performers to not feel that their degree was going to be pulled down by having to write a 5,000 word piece of writing which wasn't their bag and they couldn't see why they didn't need to do it. So we wanted to, and I think that's what's quite clever about the module, that it allows people to do both things. But it is important that you do that research and you find out whether or not you might need to do it. Okay?
Just as a point for the teaching thing,
Yeah.
they don't have to be module titles, it's actually breaking down what you did.
Yeah.
And as well as, so they'll ask you'd write English and maths and designing rather than the actual title, so you can go with this.
Well, the one that I just did yesterday, and when I read through, it did say that all the 20 credits and the titles of all. Now, I didn't look at what they'd written as the titles, I must admit. I just saw that they'd literally written down, right from first year, all the way down to the third year, what the modules were and how many credits they were. Well, that must be a bit of a pain putting them into the UCAS thing, but... Right, so can I come to stage 4? Stage 4 happens in January, February, March, where you attend the launch meetings. This is not the launch meeting, this is an information meeting. The launch meetings happen according to the pathway. So we'll get all of the people that want to do the theatre and education pathway in a small group. A bit like what I did with Lexi and, yeah, with each group doing an original performance. Because, as we found out in the past, people sometimes don't want to ask the questions in this kind of forum because they don't want to, they don't, but that is unassessed. So, yeah, We will tell you when they are, and last year we had maximum of 8 people at a time at those meetings. That's just how it turned out. Sometimes it was 2 and 3 people, sometimes it was 6 or 7 people. Can't remember any. Maybe the writing one, I think, was the biggest one. I think 12 people did the extended essay last year, so I think we did. Yeah, so we had that one. Yeah, so that you can ask questions that are specific for the for the route that you want to go. Okay? And if you've at that point, you've got maybe like 2 choices in mind, well, there would be absolutely nothing wrong with attending 2 meetings. If you said, well, I'm not sure whether I want to do the essay, or I'm not sure whether I want to do this one, then quite simply go to both. There will be about 8. Seeing the same person at all 8 would be a bit dispiriting. I would be like going, make your mind up, narrow it down a bit. Yeah? I don't know whether I want to do this. That will just confuse you even more. So if you could get it down to like 2 and then go to there, then that's fine. If you're already at that point, and by all means, like you said, Kelly, come and talk to us in advance on an individual basis, then, you know, get through to the point where you kind of know which pathway you want to go. Okay. The first part of the project, which is worth 20% of the final mark, is to explain what you're going to do. So you say, I'm going to do an essay. First 20% is your essay proposal. And you've got a week to do it. So if you start in January, you deliver it a week later. If you start in February, you deliver it a week later. Not the final bit, your plan, your proposal. You know, a bit saying, I'm going to do this, it will be structured like this, I'm going on this work placement in this date, I'm going to interview a load of people in this way, I'm going to submit a report at the end, I'm going to do an audition at the end, produce a CD at the end, and what will be on it, what your thinking is, explain. Again, there's some more slides coming about that, but that's just to give you a heads up first. We will give you some feedback as well at that point, so that if your 20% is on the wrong direction, your 80%, then we'll say, not sure that's going to meet the criteria, think a bit more in this area, make sure you cover this. That was great, but also do this. Yeah, because it's very easy, if you break it down like that and somebody tells you what they're going to do, it's very easy to spot whether somebody's not on the right tracks or not. We make it assessed because it makes people really think in advance about how to structure it and what to do and what research they're going to need to perform and what the outcome's going to be at the end. Okay? And that's where you may design it. And you obviously can come and get some advice. You get a project mentor. All the staff work on this module and they tend to work to their sort of areas. So if you get a dance mentor or you get a music person or whatever. Yeah? Yes?
Is that a week after you start it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that again, you make it exactly fair on everybody, regardless of whether you start in January, whether you start in February, or whether you start in March. You do it the week after. That's why thinking about it now is a good idea, because if you've already got a load of information together, it's very easy to knock it into shape in terms of a presentation. Most people do this as a presentation, like I'm doing now. Some people didn't use PowerPoint, some people had leaflets and handouts and they wanted us to sit around a table. The design of the format of the presentation is again up to you. What you think would be most fitting for the kind of work that you're going into. For the essay, people again submitted an essay proposal on Blackboard as a written document in annotated bibliography and the research question and all of that. Okay? So that's stage 5, and then we move on to what you will be assessed on. There are 4 things. Only this last thing here has weighted 25, 25 and 25. And 25, or I said enough 25s, yes. Weighted equally and I'm just going to unpack them a little bit for you. So this final thing is what you'd expect on a creative course, because even if you're planning and you're working and your process is delivery, if your final thing is rubbish, it really doesn't matter how good the rest of it is, you won't get there. Let's say you're doing an audition, yeah? You've got a brilliant portfolio, you've researched into who the casting director is for all these shows you'd like to be in, got a fantastic CV, your headshot's knocking them dead. You walk into the room and you flunk. You know, it's not going to get you there. So it's the whole thing, right the way through, from the beginning of the process all the way through to the end. So let's go back to the beginning of the process. How well you demonstrate planning, research, presentation skills and organisation. We leave you, yes, with a supervisor on the project. I used the word mentor earlier on. I'm actually going to use the word supervisor because it's what's in the module handbook, and it's different from the mentor. With your original performance, you know, and some people were mentoring, that's the first semester. We give you quite, you know, a fair bit of guidance and support for those people who don't feel that they're ready for it. We now require you to demonstrate to us that you're ready to go out into the outside world. Because 4 or 5 months after this module is over, you might want all the kind of support and guidance that, but where is it going to come from? It is there out there in the real world, but you have to be careful about how you access it. Here it's our job. Perhaps we do it a bit too much sometimes, this kind of open door and people can come in and have a chat about things. Perhaps you don't think we do it enough. I seem to think that, you know, I have quite extensive chats with a number of people about all sorts of issues. When they've left and they're living somewhere else in the country, almost never does, sometimes it does, but almost never does the phone ring and say, oh hello, it's so-and-so, I left last year, I just wondered if I could have a chat with you about whatever. I mean, sometimes people do get in touch and it's nice if we can help, but obviously our focus is on you people doing the course currently. So you need to convince us that you have the skills and the knowledge and stuff, because you can find things out for yourself. You can have a meeting with somebody in a professional context. You're not expected to know everything when you begin in a career. You're given a mentor if you go into a school that you can ask. Usually I seem to remember we had a weekly meeting when I was mentoring teachers in schools. We sat down and we chatted over how things were going and stuff, and you get that, but you don't get it every day, and most of the time you have to stand on your own 2 feet and sort out your own issues and problem solve for yourself. So this is what we need. How well you understand the professional context for your work. Some people were so far short of the mark last year. I really need to, when we do the launch meetings, I'm really going to make sure we spell it out. We're not talking about pretending to be like, oh, it's all right for a university. That's not good enough for this module. You need to deliver it in industry standard methods. If a CV that lands on a casting director's desk doesn't look right, or isn't easy to read, or the information is poorly spelt or jumbled up or whatever it is, they'll just throw it in the bin. Wasting your time. Similarly, with a headshot, I cannot, you know, we'll come back to this when we look at London Showcase later, but you cannot overestimate how important that is for those of you wanting to go into, you know, the profession, that you have a good headshot. We are going to do something on this module to help you get one for cheap. I'm already talking to somebody who's going to come in and do one for everybody who wants one for an incredibly ridiculously cheap price. We're paying them top dollar to come and do it. It's about £500 a day for a photographer to come in and get them. But if they can put a number of people through in the day, you're not paying them the day's rate yourself. So I mean, we're shielding that cost, and we're going to do it for something like 15 quid for everybody. And then you can take your, you'll get 2 or 3 shots for that. And last year we were able to give them for people in colour and black and white. Yeah? everybody knows as well, when you first leave, you're probably not, unless you're really, really wealthy, going to be able to pay the rates that the very, very top photographers down in London charge, which is between 150 and 250 pounds a session, for you to probably get 1 or 2 shots. Yeah. Some people will insist that you do that, agents, after a period of time. But if you've got 1 shot or a couple of shots that are usable up front, then you can go on Spotlight and you can go on Casting Call Pro and these sort of places where you will get work. If you've got a rubbish headshot, you'll just get passed over. And people brought photocopies where you couldn't even tell it was them last year, and they went, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't really have time to get all done." I don't really have time to see you then, is what will happen out there in the real world. So don't fob us off. Take your opportunity to get it sorted. Then you will walk out of here ready and equipped to take things on. Instead, if we didn't do this module, what we used to find was everything was about final this, final that, final the other. And people had that sense of the approaching wall and no idea what they were going to do on the other side of it when they left. That's not doing you a good service, people, unless we use a module like this to prepare you for that. Very nearly finished, yeah? But no, that's fine.
You coming?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, no, that's no problem. I know why you've got to go. Yeah. The actual performance is at 7, isn't it? I've seen the dress rehearsal now, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, there's only literally 1 more slide if you, okay. So, how well you exercise initiative and autonomy in producing high quality work and meeting deadlines. We've put that in because there's a big difference between somebody coming into their project supervisor and saying, I thought about doing this, but then I was worried about this. Which approach do you think is better? That sounds professional, sounds like something that somebody could answer in the real world if you went out to them. I'd have some time for that. Yeah? Somebody coming in and going, I don't know what to do. Does not. Yeah? It sounds like somebody who hasn't got their head together. Somebody who hasn't started to develop the planning skills and the organisational skills. Yeah? I don't know what to do is not something that you come to a supervisor and say. You might say it to your mum, but you're not going to give, well, she might be able to give you a job, look at you if she can. But, you know, you see what I'm saying? Use this module as an opportunity, and some of you are great at this already. I'm not, sort of knocking anybody. I've had some fantastic professional level conversations with people who know already exactly how and will not struggle with this. Equally, I have had, there was one person sort of several years ago, if she came to my office once, she came 10, 15 times saying, is this any good now? And I was like, how come you don't know whether this is any good? Yeah, but is it a first yet? Now, I had some sympathy because I understood that if you're going to be a teacher and she was going to be a teacher and you got a different bursary if you were going to be. But in the end, I said, it is you now that has to judge whether this is of a sufficient standard or not. I had given you several bits of feedback. I felt really bad doing it, but in the end, I thought I was doing her a favour to say, look, enough. Because if you go into a school and you're like that, you'll make yourself very unpopular with the experienced staff. If you look needy. Can I do this lesson with, I find it really difficult with the year 9s on a Wednesday afternoon and I'm prepared. They'll be like, do you think I don't? You've had the training, that's your lesson plan, go and find out whether it works. They'll soon tell you the year 9s on a Wednesday afternoon because they'll be climbing the walls if you don't get it right. Yeah, that's what we're preparing you for, okay? So, first, it's all about the plan. Create an appropriate professional format, that's what I said, either stand and do a presentation or write it out on paper or sit round, hand out some sheets or whatever, project which you use to develop an agreed outcome. This is where you've got some negotiation possible, and I'm sure other people will have some questions later. So would it be all right if that's what we're encouraging, for you to engage, make some suggestions, take some initiative, say, how many tracks do you think should be on my CV, on my demo CD? I was thinking maybe 4 or 5. Is that suitable? Yeah, that'd be great. What kind of tracks were you thinking of putting? Well, I was planning to have one slow one. That's the kind of professional conversation that we're into. And finally, I think this is the last one, yeah. Finally, make sure that you do these kind of things. I've said enough now about effective professional relationships. High-level communication. Send your supervisor an email, word it properly, spell it properly, give the right date. You organise the meeting with your supervisor to tell them how you're progressing with your project halfway through. So you do the presentation first, you've got the date when you're agreeing an outcome, and halfway through you say, I'd like to come and discuss my progress with you. Could I please come on this day? The morning would suit me. What time would you? Yeah? That's what we're interested in seeing. Personal responsibility, integrity, and sound judgment. Integrity, you say you're going to do it, you deliver. Sound judgment, you know what is required in a professional context, and you don't sell yourself short. Effective target setting and the ability to meet deadlines. You know, you say, well, by then I think I should have got to this point, or I need to link this around an experience that I will be sorting out interviewing some teachers, and I've arranged to do that in this week. Do it. That's what you've said, that's part of your project. And similarly, a presentation of the work to professional standards. And we're going to give another example from last year because we just couldn't believe it. Somebody showed up to their audition, mock audition, right, with, I know it's going to sound trivial to you, but they looked like they'd just got out of bed. Their hair was kind of like all over the place. They had smeared mascara. Their nails were all chipped and as they put their CV down on the table. It made no consideration of how would I actually present myself if I was going to an audition. Now, okay, you don't want to be teetering in on heels looking like you're about to go for a night out, but equally you don't want to look like you just got out of bed. And it was so poorly judged that we had to give that feedback, that they were inappropriately dressed, and you know, they didn't like it, but I'm afraid that was the truth. Nobody would have taken them seriously. Honestly, it was like going in your onesies. You just wouldn't do it. Okay, I'm done. That is designed to make you to start to think, how would I approach this module? Questions, please. Yes.
If you were to do, if you were doing something practical for your, like, thing, like say you're doing an audition or CV or whatever, does that also mean that you would do a portfolio leading up to that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're going to work with someone, like I said with Matt and Jack,
Yes.
and you're doing work together, how
Yes.
do you get marked on that?
Well, we agreed with Jack and that they would get exactly the same mark.
Okay.
But that was agreed and negotiated with them. But let's say one of them was, in the end that's what we decided, but I could have seen if they'd taken different aspects, but what they wanted to do was present it together because they were so interdependent that in the end we just said to them, look, I don't know how we're going to be able to separate. And he said, well, we're going to do it as a band. It's a band, so how can we do it separately? Because it was impossible for them to say, not take a phone call or not deal with the email, or because they were doing it for real. Yeah?
If you did an extended essay, is it marked by one person or is it like double?
No, it's double marked. Okay? Yep.
It's PowerPoint on the blackboard.
Yes.
you have any questions after this, who do we approach? You.
Yeah, initially.
Fine.
Okay.
My question's similar to that, but you know how like, original, like all the tutors were involved in some way? Is it just you and Mary for this, or is it the same as original? Every
all the tutors mentor. Mary and I do the majority of the marking, but we couldn't mark everything because we had to bring in specialists on certain things.
Yeah.
So if we were marking choreography, for example, we couldn't do that. So you do get different markers according to what you choose to do. Actually, Gavin and Demetra did all the essays last year, for example. I don't know what the staffing is because that's not my job. I don't allocate the staff to the modules, but I know that everybody's been given some time to do different aspects of the module depending on, you know, that's kind of why I also need the numbers of who's going to be doing which pathway so that we can see how much support we need to put in what kind of area.
Did you say that survey was going to be this week?
Yes. Yeah, I just need to put the new dates on it. I can show it you now. It's very simple. It's only got about 3 pages on it. It just says,
we'll just, like,
when
know
do you want to do
January.
it? What are you thinking about doing? Thank you very much. And then we get back, and then I put together a program of all the different launch dates, and I just put it on the Blackboard site. Yeah?
You do an audition for it. Are you saying you're auditioning for a show or you're auditioning for an agency?
You can decide.
If I was to choose auditioning for a show, do I choose what kind of show?
Yes. But you would say I'm being seen by the casting director and the director of the show, and then we go into role and put a different hat on. Sometimes it would be like I'm trying to get into this agency. We interview you afterwards, so you get different questions according to. And for a show, for example, what we did last year was we pushed people in different directions. You see, yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
We would do supplementary things afterwards to test people out.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So on relating to that, like if we were going to pick a show, would it be like a hypothetical show,
No,
or
it should
be a real show? So we should find out who the casting director is when in.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really stupid question. But.
No, that's right. It should be, ideally should be one that's roundabout or one that you know is coming up. That's part of the research. Find out who's casting for what. We're going to bring an agent in and who's also a casting director, so you can actually talk to them. But there's things that you can find out. It's not difficult. There's only about 5 or 6 main casting directors in the country for different things. And you really need to know who they are, what they tend to cast for, and what the process is. And ideally, the idea about we're going to go on to London Showcase in a minute is if you get the right agent, they are the ones with the connections to the casting directors, and they can get you seen with an appointment rather than I'll go to an open audition or I'll send in a CV at random. That's obviously the benefit of having an agent. Yeah.
See, when it comes to arts, am I able to like do some sort of experiment with kids with special needs?
Yeah.
No. No. Like how like drama, like.
We had someone who did drama therapy last year took as a topic. Yeah.
Like, no, not like this.
Is that a question or are you just waving your pen?
Me? Did you have a question?
No, you're just waving your pen. That's okay. Are we done? Can we move on to showcase? Right, should we have just a couple of minutes break? Right. Meanwhile, can you turn the message around?
I just want to take the other option. It's just, I'm really on the fence on whether to do it or not. That's probably like the day then.
No, I told you. It's waiting for I think it is possible to do something.
Say you wanted to work here, how the hell are you supposed to put that down? Because that's just a job opportunity. And on your own, you can set up. Exactly. How is that possible to do on your own? Everyone's going to do an audition. That's fine, because we're just plugging our way through uni anyway.
No, I'm confused. Not
Take me out. Do it. I need to charge my phone.